Ever since the tale of Achilles and his heel, the idea of the weak spot has been ubiquitous within games where you... Wait, what do you do?
And you attack its weak point for massive damage.
Ah yes, thanks buddy. Bosses frequently have weak points for players to take advantage of, but in some cases those weak spots are, well, bloody embarrassing. Whether they're in humiliating places or just laughably easy to take advantage of, there are plenty of weak spots that we'd be ashamed to have. Here then are 7 bosses with laughably embarrassing weak spots we can't believe they didn't hide or cover up or anything. Beware spoilers for the following games.
It's hard to overstate how influential the original Half-Life was as a first-person shooter. In an era when FPS games hadn't moved on much from sprinting around the brown corridors of Doom and Quake, Half-Life immersed you in a believable environment, was masterfully paced, and told a mature sci-fi story.
What the hell are these things?
And at one point, towards the end of the game, some would say a little too mature. As Half-Life approaches its conclusion, your character, Gordon Freeman, finds himself teleported from the ill-fated Black Mesa research facility to the alien world of Zen. On this low-gravity world of floating platforms and awful first-person jumping puzzles, it's not long before he's menaced by this boss. Now, I'm going to describe this enemy extremely carefully. This particular adversary has an armoured carapace up top, and hanging below that has a... how best to put this? A spherical mass suspended in a loose pouch. This boss is called the Gonarch, and it runs around the place with all that dangly business just swing-swanging around down there. And if the name Gonarch sounds faintly familiar, that'll be because it appears to derive from the Latin gonas, which means an organ of the body that produces gametes, of which there is derived at least one other English word, which I will not repeat here. The Gonarch is a dangerous foe, and while it does have an armoured shell to contend with, the good news, if you can call it that, is that its weak spot is right there in plain view. If you want to defeat it and move on to the next area, you'll need to aim your weapon at the... Look, just shoot it in the big ball bag, alright? The relief!
Designer Coco Chanel is often attributed with the quote, "Before you leave the house, look in the mirror and remove one accessory." One person it definitely could never be attributed to is High Lord Wolnir. This gigantic skeleton looms out of the void at you like a pickup artist cornering you from the darkness of a gloomy bar.
Here's something out there.
Oh no, it's the boss fight! Let's fight High Lord Wolnir! Yay!
But even as a giant rotting corpse, the High Lord doesn't like to dress down. Look not at all closely, because they're glowing bright gold in a black room, and you'll see 3 ornate bracelets on Wolnir's wrists. Follow video game logic and try to smash the glowy things, and you'll discover that, of course, destroying them takes off huge chunks of his health. Look, I get fashion over function, but this is ridiculous. When you're just trying to hit Wolnir anywhere else, the damage is laughably small. So what's the thinking here, Wolnir? Put all of your health into 3 pieces of jewellery, only to then put them right next to your hands, the very hands that you're trying to smash your enemies with, thus giving those enemies easy access to your biggest weakness, when you could have put them somewhere entirely out of reach, thus making this boss battle extremely tough? To spell it out, Wolnir, have you never heard of anklets?
2007 platform game Wario Master of Disguise has a bit of a misleading title, because while Wario does wear a variety of different costumes in it, there's really no disguising who it is. I mean, look at him. In the game, Wario creates a magic helmet that lets him enter a TV show about a Master of Disguise thief and steal his disguise-changing wand so he can undertake his own robberies. This crime spree eventually takes him to the Pyramid of Pooh-Bah the Pharaoh, an ancient Egyptian ruler with a lot of anger and very little in the way of clothing. To determine the Pharaoh's weak point, Wario must transform into his Genius Wario disguise, although if you've watched this far into the video, it doesn't really take a genius to figure out that yes, it's his underwear. Then all you need to do is transform into Wario's Dragon Wario disguise and send a sheet of superheated flame into the Pharaoh's unmentionables to scorch his nethers and do him some damage. To be honest, if you asked me how Wario would defeat an ancient Egyptian mummy, this would have been exactly my answer.
You are, if I may say so, looking ineffably elegant tonight.
The main problem with the Titanic, apart from the catastrophic iceberg crash and inadequate lifeboat provisions, was the total lack of robots. The Starship Titanic from the game of the same name fixes that shortcoming by having loads of advanced robots on staff to get you checked in, carry your luggage to your cabin, and, we assume, keep Leonardo DiCaprio away from any old-timey cars being transported in the hold.
Welcome, guest number, 1, to the most glamorous galactic cruise ship experience in the whole of the space-time continuum, the Starship Titanic, the ship that cannot possibly go wrong. Ha!
In this exceedingly 90s point-and-click adventure, you're preparing to use your exceedingly 90s personal computer when that same intergalactic cruise ship comes crashing into your living room. Things have gone very wrong aboard the Starship Titanic, it turns out. All the robots have gone haywire, and it falls to you, the former owner of a beautifully beige PC, to save the day.
Will you help?
Well, I was going to spend 20 minutes logging into AOL, but I guess my evening just opened up. In the course of events aboard the Starship Titanic, you get yourself upgraded to first class to reach the first class restaurant, but then in order to access the table of a very dead human guest, you'll have to vanquish the malfunctioning, partially dismembered maitre d' bot.
Je suis désolé, mesdames. That table is occupied by a very distinguished customer. He has been lingering over his cafe for 17 hours.
This robot was already in a pretty bad way before you ripped his arm off and added it to your inventory, but to access the table you'll have to have a proper fight with him, or as close to a proper fight as you get in a point-and-click adventure.
Alright, I'll fight you.
The only way to defeat this hospitality bot, as you will discover by clicking around randomly, how else, is to click on his robot buttocks.
Ah, you brought me on my Achilles buttock. This you must not do. It pains me very much.
Humiliatingly for the maitre d' bot, it transpires that his weak spot is, as he calls it, his Achilles buttock, which can be exploited by clicking on it many, many times.
Do not prod my Achilles buttock.
Why would someone program you to feel pain? And why only in one buttock? By the time this poor mechanical man is ready to surrender, both he and you are surely embarrassed enough to never mention this incident ever again.
I yield to your superior bottom prodding strategies.
Please don't call them that.
Much like running a nighttime security firm, in boxing it's incredibly important to keep your guard up. What we wouldn't recommend you do is open up your mouth invitingly to your opponent so that they can smack you right in the back of the throat. I said not to do that. This boxing buffoon is King Hippo, who is nearly impossible to land a hit on due to how he's basically a giant whose arms are an impenetrable force field. But if you take advantage of the literal opening he gives you, King Hippo's boxing trunks will fall down, forcing him to move his hands to hoist his trunks back up, revealing quite possibly the worst weak spot a boxer could have. His belly button. Ew. And even though his unprotected umbilicus is already exposed, it's also helpfully covered in an X marks the spot shaped bandage, like he's just arrived having had a recent laparoscopy. But if King Hippo is indeed recovering from minimally invasive abdominal surgery, we can't imagine why the hell he thought it would be a good idea to go into a boxing match where getting punched in the gut is a near certainty. At least cover it in something. Touché, King Hippo. Touché.
Balls of brassa, polished to the nth degree.
Oh no! A bourgeois big bullet boiler. That's all I need.
Conker's Bad Fur Day is definitely not what one would call a highbrow game. In fact, a lot of the time it goes for low-hanging fruit. For example, when some fiery imps take control of a boiler to fight you and reveal that it's got massive cojones.
See that button there? Yeah. The one with the... Yeah. Press it.
Yeah, that's definitely low-hanging fruit, alright. For most of this fight, you'll be kiting this boiler to the corners of the room, hoping to douse its flames with what we can only assume is poo, because this game is as obsessed with fecal matter as your local gastroenterologist. But toilet humour can only do so much. Once you've already ruined this boss's day, what you actually need to do is leg it straight towards the day's boiler and whack him real hard in the nads. Ooh, it's enough to make you wince. And wonder why a boiler even has a pair of those. As you continue to absolutely wail on this boiler's balls, you can't help but think, what if those two imps hadn't pushed that button to release them? And, oh man, he must feel really red-faced right now, and red-balled. Worst of all is when Conker goes for the killing blow, he goes on a rampage on those rocks. He beats the boiler's bollocks over and over until they finally pop off with a few whacks from a frying pan, like Conker's playing an incredibly violent game of table tennis. This unplanned orchiectomy brings down the boiler, but we're not sure whether it died from losing its titanic testes or out of sheer embarrassment. I'd say both.
Oh, great. Where did this giant dick come from?
Bulletstorm isn't your average shooter. For one, there's the incredible dialogue.
You pals give chase, I will kill your dicks!
What? What does that even mean? You're gonna kill my dick? Well, I'll kill your dick! How about that, huh?
Easily the equal of anything Shakespeare ever wrote. Then there's the skill shots, which are special ways of killing enemies in elaborate or spectacular fashion that reward you with bonus points if you manage to pull them off. These skill shots range from the fairly mundane, such as kicking someone into a big space cactus, to the elaborate, such as turning them into a spectacular high-altitude fireworks display. There is also a unique skill shot in the game, however, that also functions as a secret weak spot for the enemy known as the mini-boss, a tough, hulking boss enemy armed with a powerful two-handed weapon. The skill shot in question is called Fire in the Hole, and if you hadn't played Bulletstorm, you'd probably assume it was something to do with explosions. If you have played Bulletstorm, you probably guessed right away what hole they were talking about. And you were right, because to target this weak point and to get this skill shot, you need to get around behind the mini-boss, boot off the metal plate covering their behind, and then as quickly as possible, shoot them up the bum. And yes, it does come complete with embarrassing sound effect. So we defeated the mini-boss with only a couple of shots, but we did have to watch and hear that happen, so I'm calling it a partial success.
I don't know about you, but now I want to speak in this outrageous French accent because of the robot with the Achilles buttock. And if you enjoyed this video, maybe you should press like and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you would like to support us further, we also have the Patreon, where you can then join the Discord and ask us questions. And then you can go watch videos here. And if you pop in the comments any hilariously embarrassing things that you have had to hit on bosses, like, oh my goodness, I cannot believe that is a weak spot, Achilles buttock, what are we talking about? But if you enjoy that and my outrageous accent, thank you, and we'll see you next video. Bonjour, au revoir.